right, so the lead share today will be on relationships. It's an interesting topic and one that deserves more than the next half hour. But let's start anyway. My name is John. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict, and yeah, we're going to talk about relationships today. My wife opened up this can of worms a few weeks back at our upper room recovery meeting, and there's just a lot of people in the room, and when the sharing got going, I just realized like the depth of the sharing and the need to talk about relationships was really interesting. I understand, and it might be a gender thing, but I understand in my experience that women like to talk about relationships a lot more than men. For the most part, us men are like, yeah, we got relationships. Yeah, sure, got them. Got as many as I need, got as many as I want, probably a couple too many. But then you get talking into like different kinds of relationships. What's your relationship with the gym? What's your relationship with food? What's your relationship with driving? What's your relationship with your little beautiful media device? And some of us don't like to talk about that because, yeah, it brings us shame. It brings us pride because other people do it, but I do it better than other people, or I'm doing it more healthy, or the perception of it. So there's a depth of talking about relationships, which I think is important because at the end of every relationship, I think it would be a good metric to see where you're really at in your recovery. And by recovery, I don't mean abstinence. In recovery, what I mean is your relationship with God. Recovering the temple of the Garden of Eden. We are the dwelling place of God now. And so we used to be the dwelling place of whatever, fill in the blank, relationships, jobs, cocaine, alcohol, whatever it was. Now we're the dwelling place of the Spirit of God's love. And so a good metric is to really break down my relationships and where we are. So my example when I was meditating on this morning was my grandpa. On the Ruby side, Grandpa Percy Ruby was the character above all characters. He was in World War II as a Mennonite. He couldn't fight, but he could cook, and so he was the chef in the war. He had a Medal of the Purple Honor Heart, I do believe it's called, and he had story after story. He made donuts. He made wine on the side, and he came back a very sick man from the war with his drinking problem. He had a really bad drinking problem when he came back. Very aggressive, abusive. Did 5 years in the sanitarium before he was let out. But I didn't know that Percy Ruby. I just knew Grandpa, and I was Grandpa's. I'm not. It's not self-proclaimed. I don't think. I was just Grandpa's favorite. And it was obvious because I followed him around. When we moved back from Asia, we moved into where they were. There was a motel and a furniture store. So there was so much going on for a little guy like me. I loved it. I was in grade 8 and 9. He bought me rabbits, like 2 rabbits. I multiplied those to like 45 rabbits. I'm selling door-to-door rabbits. He would buy trailer loads of furniture, like used furniture, and so I would help him sort it. I would help him build. I was his tool guy. He had a couple pop machines. Back in the day, we had like those pop machines, the big vending machines. We still have those. A little bit different today. You put your quarter in, you get your pop. And every month he would open them, and there would be the big change, and he would dump it on the table, and it was my job to roll them. And so as me and my brother rolled them, at the end of it, he would always give us like a roll. Like back then, $10 was a big deal. Like you just got a roll, and you could drink basically all the pop that you wanted. It was a big deal. Those were big bonuses when you're in grade 8 and 9. You're taking that quarter roll to the arcade. Like that's the video games that I grew up with. You had to go somewhere to play. And it was just I loved the relationship. Like usually at night, he would call me in, and he was German, so he couldn't say J, so he called me Jonathan. So Jonathan, and I would come into his room. He was a snorer, so he slept apart from my grandma. They had rooms beside each other, and he would ask me to tuck him in. And he had a big belly, and I would bring the blanket up, and he would hold it like this, and I would just say, "I love you, Grandpa. Have a good night." And I remember he was big on food, so he just bought barrels of everything. He would buy ice cream, Neapolitan ice cream, and he wouldn't serve me a bowl. He would ask me, and it was in the box. He would ask me what flavor I wanted. And so he would unfold the box, and there's three flavors. So I would get a third of a cube of Neapolitan ice cream. That's how Grandpa rolled, and everything was big. So I look back on it and meditated on it today, and that relationship was really all about what I could get. Like, obviously, I gave him a smile on his face because, like, I'm following him around. I'm his tour guy. I'm kind of helpful at some level. It's nothing that he couldn't do on his own. But it was basically what I could get out of that relationship gave me the excitement, the anticipation of what was coming. I do this and I get a roll of quarters. I was around him so that I got like the bowl of blueberries with the ice cream and, all that stuff. It was more about what I could get. So in recovery, what we're talking about is recovering a relationship with God that was in the Garden of Eden. We read about the first relationship with God, with humankind, mankind, and God in this Garden of Eden. And that's what we get to recover. And so we go through this process, and maybe you're familiar with that. We go through this inventory process, especially we kind of make this concession that we can't do life the way that normal people can, whoever normal people are. But we concede to our inmost being that I'm a mess and I can't get right. And I'm conceding to drugs and alcohol or whatever it is, fill in the blank, has got me beat. And I need a manager now to manage my spiritual condition. And so now we go into this belief that God can. We might have some sort of relationship with God. Typically, it's full of prejudices and stuff in between that relationship and kind of what I've seen or grown up with or the lack thereof. And so now I'm being asked to have this relationship with God that will solve all my problems, like alcohol used to. And then we go into this declaration about turning my will and my life over to the care of God. And then we go into the inventory process to actually have a look at what's inside of me. And so on page 72 of the big book, we kind of are into that section now. And it says we've been trying to get. There's three things that we're trying to get now. Is number one, a new attitude. Number two, a new relationship with God. And I'll tell you right now, your relationship with God will be reflected in the relationships around you. If you have a mess of relationships around you, if you have relationships that you're in consumeful relationships with, then it'll probably be a reflection of how your relationship with God is doing. So a new attitude, a new relationship, and to discover the obstacles that are in the pathway to this spiritual life, to this relationship. And so what's this new attitude? What we're talking about is a new attitude. On page 27, we kind of are introduced to the idea of a simple attitude. It's a simple attitude to get spiritual help, to set aside all of my prejudices of God, my ideas of what recovery is or what the new life is or all of that stuff. It's just this simple attitude that when we go to page 55, we get a different look at what it actually is. And it says, with this new attitude, you cannot fail. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come. So basically, this idea that we're talking about is that God is going to replace my alcohol and drug addiction. And if you're like me, you worship those things. You gave your life, your heart, you worship them. You gave your all to it in trade for life and validation. Because when you take those substances or when you click the mouse or when you fill in the blank, whatever that's relieving you of, you can see that problem. And so now we're trying to introduce this new attitude that God is either everything or he's nothing. And if you were like me, you didn't do some part-time cocaine, it might have started like that. It might have, kind of looked innocent, but it sure led into 15 years of, jail time and missing the kids and all this stuff that, losing your driver's license. I gave my heart to it. I would never have said that at the time, but when you look at it, I gave my heart to it. So this new attitude is something that I'm not foreign to, but it's giving my heart to the love of God. And having a whole new attitude around it. And so the attitude is either God is everything or he's nothing. That's what we're talking about. Those are the things that we're trying to get. And that sounds a little tricky. Like, yeah, I get that. But if God is everything or he's nothing, then is God, what happens if God is everything with your cell phone? What happens if God is everything with your girlfriend or boyfriend or marriage? If God is everything, what does your bank account look like? What does your time look like? What does your driving look like? What does your thought life look like? If God is truly everything, that's it. Man, when you put it like that, it's like, well, that's a new attitude. Wow. Either God is everything or he's nothing. And so the second thing again is a new relationship with God, and then looking at the obstacles that get in the way of that. So this is where we start to talk about relationships when we're going through this inventory process. And many of us have, and me included, I always thought that the sex inventory was more about, like my intimate relationships, my physical relationships. But what we're talking about, and simply, if somebody had never had an intimate relationship with another person, then they wouldn't be able to do this work. So the point of this is actually to see my obstacles, to get a new relationship and a new attitude. So I'm going to look at my relationships, not just my sexual contact. Not that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about my relationship with the sexes, with male and female. And so it says on the top of page 69, it says most of our troubles. Let me see. It says, we can't find it now. It says, well, here's the gist of it. It says most of our troubles of the human race are traceable to sex causes. So it's the idea of getting from my relationships. And so when we go through our relationships, we actually get to look at where was I selfish? Where did I take? Where did I have expectations? Where did I go to get? What did I get to consume? And while I was doing this work, further on into my relationship with God, I didn't really have problems with a lot of women because I'm married and happily, and I don't go to women for a source of strength, and I try to keep that very healthy, and I have good boundaries. What I found out was I had more unhealthy relationship with men because men actually have something a lot more tangible to offer. And so when I was looking at that, I was like struck in awe of me trying to treat other people like a Rolodex. Like, okay, well, I have this guy and that guy, I got the car guy. And it's like you build these relationships like a Rolodex, like a business. And there's transactions, and it was eye-opening. I did this work with a person in the UK, and it was kind of new to them about this inventory. And what I always do when I work with somebody, I say put one night stands on there. Like, don't put the name, just put one night stands, or put sex before marriage or infidelity. So that person puts that, and they said you're like a religious man, so this doesn't count. Like, you're an idiot. Like, I shouldn't be working with you. Like, you're just trying to push your moral, your religious views on me. And I said to them, in the big book, it says that this is a spiritual book, but it's moral as well. And if we truly are going to be the container of the Spirit of God, I think he's going to have something to say on how we act. So part of our moral compass comes from God. Like, I'm not trying to tell anybody what they should and should not do, but this inventory is going to show you. So we had a little talk, and half an hour later they messaged me back, and they did the inventory, and they said every one night stand was all about me and what I could get. I didn't even care about a name or a number. And they said, I get what you were talking about. That's the selfishness that we're talking about that's going to kill me. Because I treat people like a transaction. And if I treat people like a transaction, then I'm treating God like a transaction. And then I only need him when I need him. But when I need him, it's going to be too late and I'm going to be sitting at the bar. And I was like, hallelujah. You got it. Like all that arguing with me, it's like, man, it was so simple because I'm not trying to push something on you. I'm trying to push you into a relationship with God. That's going to solve all your problems. And that's the real relationship. And so we get to kind of work out the relationship with God by looking at the ways that I'm consuming these relationships and actually identifying like the things that are causing me to consume. And it's all rooted in fear. It's what I can get. Like if I don't have this person in my life, I'm not going to get this. So I need to keep them as a friend, and I'm going to walk on eggshells, and I'm not going to be open and honest to them because they might, tell me to go beat it. And so I have these relationships that I really need something from, but they're not healthy at any level. And so with that example, that's how I'm going to treat my relationship with my Father God. A beautiful line in the big book, it talks about as we go through this, we're going to treat sex like every other problem. And you're like, okay, so flip that. Just flip it. So basically, if it says we're going to treat sex as any other problem, basically what we could do is treat any other problem like sex. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. What we got to do is we treat every other problem like God is everything in them, and I go to God with everything. And I go to God to shape my thinking, shape my ideals, give me direction, give me inspiration, give me intuition on every problem, especially sex. Because that's where people get really hurt. That's where people get taken advantage of. That's where I really have muddy and unhealthy boundaries. And, I'm passive aggressive or I'm aggressive, and this is me running the show. And it's going to actually show me what my relationship with God really is. So now we get to enter into this process and ask God to mold the ideal Jon. So we're going to write this all down. We're going to look at the unhealthy parts and how I'm driven with fear to take from other people, to get what could I get, and look at the relationships that I'm involved in, whether they're premarital, whether they're whatever the moral compass that you do or do not believe. Just write down relationships where you went to take. And then you go to the end of it and ask God, what should I have done instead? Like you're asking God, not your neighbor, not yourself. You're just like, God, what should I have done instead? What should I do with this relationship? I have this really unhealthy relationship with my phone now because it's all about what I can get. That's really what a phone, outside of calling and texting and email, it's basically there to hold you. It's there to hold you, and whatever holds you is going to shape and mold you. And so if it's not God, then it's going to be your media. It's going to be the TikTok. It's going to be like, that's what's going to go in your head. Flip, 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 flip. And I understand. I just got a brand new pug. For some odd reason, my feed is full of pugs and motorbikes. It's horrible. My wife actually took she was on my phone. She starts laughing. She goes, goodness, like they're reading you like an open book. All you care about is motorbikes and pugs. I'm like, well, I'm not looking them up. I don't know what happened. You look up one pug video and then you got 10,000 of them. But it can hold you, and whatever's holding you, they're going to send you messages and messaging of how you should be and what you should strive for and what you should look like and all those things. It's going to shape and mold you, whatever holds you. So do you want to be held by the love of God, or do you want to be held by your phone? And now I really got to look at what the ideal Jon is for me to be a representative of God's love. And so we look at the fear, we look at the motives and the expectations I have of the world around me. And that's the new attitude. I got to stop having motives and expectations on the world around me. And when you bring that kind of stuff up, motivation. Motives to go to the gym. I have to be motivated. Imagine that if you always have to be motivated to go to the gym, you will stop going to the gym at some point. because you can't motivate yourself to do something enough. Or if you have the gym partner that you always got to pump up his tires. Come on, we're going to the gym. Yeah, we're going to crush it today. This is the day. And you do that over the course of 2 weeks, man, it's just going to fade out. And so what if I could live without this motive of propulsion? Or what if I could live without expectations on the world around me? Because I'm not trying to get from you, I'm trying to give. Because everything that I need is coming from my Father in heaven. So I don't need to be in these relationships if I have unhealthy relationships, if I have a healthy relationship with God. And I'm being guided and directed by Him in all of my relationships. And here's where I want all of us to hold on to the new attitude. And on page 128 of the Big Book, it says, giving rather than getting is the guiding principle. So is that your guiding principle today? In all of the relationships that you have? There are some relationships that we can't afford to have because they're just consumeful relationships. And I don't like they're some people can do sports really healthy. Some people can't. Some people can do going to the gym really healthy. Some people can do online stuff very healthy. But for the most part, there's some consumeful actions that are involved in those relationships. So just ask yourself, in all of these relationships, as God is everything, then what does it look like to give rather than get? And to sum it all up, on page 70 of the Big Book, it says to sum up about relationships, to sum up about sex, to sum up about conduct. We earnestly pray for the right ideal. So what's your ideal? What's the ideal John? What's the ideal you that God wants you to be His representation? What does that look like? For guidance in each questionable situation, for sanity, for the strength to do the right thing. If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves harder into helping others. Throwing yourself harder in helping others isn't the solution, it's a tool. Let me repeat that. Helping others is not the solution, but it's a tool. And use being helpful as a tool, not my solution. We think of their needs and work for them. This takes us out of ourselves. It quiets the imperious urge when to yield would mean heartache. And so helping others actually slows you down. If you're helping a slew of people, and I don't mean just doing step work or workshops or whatever, but like you're helping people do yard work. You're focused on your neighbors, maybe a little building project or helping somebody with their kids or that kind of thing. Like I believe that you'll have a lot less time to get in trouble. And I understand there's some of us that can get in trouble when we're sitting in a room all by ourselves. Now, probably that's where we get in the most trouble. And then we go to the bar or to the mouse or to the whatever. And we go to consume. But this real relationship with God is going to cause you not to be consumeful, but to be fruitful. And we see that in the garden with Adam and Eve. He designed us to be fruitful and multiply. So if I have this solution that is spiritual, maybe the spirit of alcohol, the result of that is to be consumeful, just to take and to chug and to grab. So this new relationship with the Spirit of God's love is going to be fruitful. It's going to be giving.